Hey everybody, Phil Carr here, and thanks for tuning in for another Flannel Friday Fitness Review. So today I'm going to talk more about a type of product, not a specific item on the market. I want to talk about barbells, their manufacture, and different maintenance tools and techniques that are used, and how you can tell just from the specs of a bar whether you're getting a good barbell or not. With the quarantine right now and everything going on, everything shut down, people are trying to get all the fitness equipment they can for their home gym. A lot of people that have never trained at their homes before are starting to, and those that have been training on certain lifts at their home gyms have taken to doing more so with a lot of auxiliary lifts and more frequently with their workouts due to the gym closures. So those that haven't had barbells or home gym equipment in the past are really scrambling to get what they can to continue with their strength training and continue on their road on their journey to where they want to be as far as strength and fitness goes. So one of the big things I want to talk about is, well, has to do with these three tools here. You have I think it's called a pin wrench, you have Allen wrenches, and you have a socket wrench. Right now I have a 3/4 inch socket. So these three things are going to be some of the most common tools that you will see or that you'll need to disassemble barbells. A lot of the home gym bars and bars you'll see for sale that are for home gym use specifically have an external hex bolt on the end, and you have to tighten that down periodically to make sure the bar doesn't come apart, or for maintenance you have to take that bolt out to slide the sleeve off. So a big issue with hex bolt bars is as you use it, the sleeve is designed to spin. If you over tighten the hex bolt, it's going to inhibit the ability of the sleeve to spin. So you need to keep it somewhat loose. Depending on the design, there might be a buffer in there. When you tighten it all the way down, it can still spin. Check your bar. First thing you should do when you get a hex bolt bar, especially a used one, is make sure the bolt is tight. And then periodically, not through your workout, but before each workout or after each workout, make sure the bolt is still tight. If it wiggles loose, comes loose, it could fall out, and that entire sleeve with the weight on it could dump during your set. Hex bolt bars are typically low quality bars. The tensile strength isn't even something that's in the considerable range, which is typically anything above 190 psi or pounds per square inch, and that's how they rate the steel strength and where it's going to fail or lose its flexibility and just begin to bend. So hex bolt bars are cheap and not great for general use. If you need something cheap and you're not going to be lifting heavy, hex bolt bars are fine, but I don't recommend them to anybody, especially with the price of certain bars on the market that are much better quality. I don't think anybody in their home gym should have a hex bolt bar. So another thing that's similar to hex bolt bars is just having a normal bolt on the outside of the bar. I actually like these bars less than hex bolt bars. When you have a hex bolt bar, the hex bolt is typically visible from the end cap of the bar. If you were to have the bar on the rack and look at it from the side, you could see the hex bolt, that 6-sided bolt, and you put the hex in it, you can tighten it down. Bars that take a standard bolt on the outside, typically it's enclosed or hidden. And you'll see it sometimes with a hidden hex bolt as well, but it is more common with a standard bolt. You'll see is you'll have a faceplate that has to be removed, which I'll get to in a second, and behind that faceplate is a hidden bolt. And that's tightened down by a socket wrench, sometimes a deep socket, depending on how deep it's in there. And on occasion you'll see a hex bolt hidden in there as well. The issue with these hidden bolt bars is, one, it gives you that false sense of security that you have a bar that is not a hex bolt bar. You look at it, you think, okay, it's got an end cap, it's not a hex bolt bar. So what happens is now you can't see when this bolt comes loose, and you can't check it quickly to make sure that it's tight. So you'd have to take the bar apart to observe the bolt on the inside, tighten it up, put it back together. So the bolt bars and the enclosed hex bolt bars are actually probably some of the most dangerous, and for that reason my least favorite, and just I don't like those bars. And you won't know you have it unless you take it apart, or you get it from a reputable supplier. So no reputable bar on the market is going to close with a hex bolt or a bolt. All of the quality bars are going to close with the pin wrench. Standard, you'll see with the quality bars, you have a double spring lock collar, or a double double collar piece. So you'll have two little metal rings that you have to snap this into, squeeze down and pull it out, remove the face plates, and then there'll be another spring collar on that. You have to again remove that from deeper inside, and inside you'll have the hardware, the bushings, things like that, and a split washer, which is two C washers, and I'll post pictures of these with the video so you'll see those up here now. But you'll have two C washers, and that's really what holds the bar together on these bars. That's what stops the sleeve from sliding off and helps retain the inner bushings and all of the parts. And all the pieces on the outside are held in by these dual spring collars. I'm trying to remember what they're called. Snap rings. Dual snap ring closure is typically what you'll see. Companies that do this on all their bars currently, I know everyone loves Rogue. Rogue does it on all of their barbells. Strength Shop USA, where I used to work, they do it on all of their bars now in the US. Their European bars may be manufactured differently, but I know their power bar, their squat bar, and their deadlift bar in Europe even are made to those standards now. And then what are the other big brands? I don't think Texas actually uses this closure method. Texas uses a pin that's hammered through, as does Kabuki Strength. And the great thing about that is there's no worry of anything sliding off or breaking because it's a metal pressure pin that's pressed into the end of the bar. And when they're assembled this way, York does it this way as well, there's no chance of the snap ring, for example, coming out, which is very rare. I don't think I've ever seen it in my 15 years in the fitness industry. So, but with the hammered through pin, an issue is if anything does go wrong, if you do have to remove this pin for any type of maintenance, or the bushings go bad, or you get metal shavings on the inside that inhibits its ability to spin, or you just have issues getting grease in there, or there's too much dirt and dust in there, you need to hammer out this pin. I've seen this with a lot of the York bars because the York bars have been on the market forever now. So I don't know how long Kabuki's been making bars, but I don't think it's been as long as York, and I haven't personally had the experience with the Kabuki bars that I've had with the York at this time. So if you need to remove this pin, typically after the years of use that it takes to get to this point, by the time you get that pin out, it's going to break in half and you need to buy a new one. And then you can take it apart, clean it, put it together, replace the new pin. So the bars on the market that are most user-friendly, the home gym bars, the commercial gym bars, are the ones that you see that are closed with this snap ring closure. So now what you'll see again with the hex bolt and the bolt end bars is you'll have a single snap ring outside of a faceplate, and then behind that faceplate is a bolt or a hex bolt, and those are the bars you need to make sure you avoid. Typically, if you can't see on the end that it's closed with a pin, or it's stated specifically that it is closed with a dual snap ring closure, then ask the manufacturer, does this bar contain any bolts or hex bolts, or how is it held together? Because they will disclose that information to you, because no one's going to lie to you about what's in their bar. That's false advertisement. Not only is it illegal, I'm pretty sure most of the people that make bars like to at least be somewhat honest. So if you do have a bar like this, just make sure you know that you have a bar like that has that hidden bolt, and you have a tool like this. You get these on Amazon for probably, I think they were $10. And I've had this pair for a couple of years, and I've taken apart probably 1,000 bars with this because I did all the maintenance. I did the assembly on all of the stock bars at the warehouse in Richmond, Indiana. So they hold up really well. You don't need to have, different wrenches for different bars. If they take a snap ring, one quality pair will work. And again, these are from Craftsman. I got them on Amazon, I think about $10. So now when you're talking about bars, you know the end cap closure. You want to make sure you have that dual snap ring closure and no hex bolts. Another big thing is the steel. Everyone likes the finish and whatnot, the color. People tend to pick finishes based on appearance, which I think is probably the worst way to select a barbell. Nothing about the appearance tells you how the bar is going to perform unless you can visually see the hex bolt on the outside. Nothing about the way the bar looks is going to tell you about its performance. The steel quality, the PSI, and its yield strength, what it takes to actually flex the bar, giving it that whip, and then what it takes to bend the bar. All bars are going to have numbers, or all steels have these numbers that can either be found, researched, or maybe listed on the site. The Rogue Power Bar and the Strength Shot Power Bar, for example, have a 205 psi. The Texas Power Bar has a 185 psi, and that's a topic for another discussion, but that 185 does fall below that 190, which is that industrial standard. Texas has been around for a long time, and their bars have held up really well, but I've also seen more Texas bars bend than I have any other brand of barbell. But Texas has been around the longest. I've seen the most Texas bars on the market. So is it a more frequent occurrence? I don't know, but from what I've seen, I would say the 185 psi rating versus a 205 does have an effect. But now, the finish and the color. A lot of people like to pick specifically deadlift bars. They like that black shaft. Most companies that offer, actually all companies that offer a deadlift bar, offer typically 3 finishes. They offer the raw steel, which has no finish on it. It's just a raw, uncoated, unfinished steel that is very susceptible to rust. So it's not ideal for any type of gym training environment or commercial, like garage gym training environment where the temperature is going to fluctuate, or a commercial gym environment where it's going to be a lot of people. If you have a climate-controlled gym and you grease your own bar every day, you don't need to worry about it. And the raw steel bars honestly give the best feel you're ever going to get on a bar, because there's nothing between your hand and the knurl. When you finish a bar, it's like putting paint over top of that knurling. A thin paint or thinner paint or thicker paint, depending on that type of finish that they use, but still it is a layer. So imagine you have a barbell that you like the knurl on and you wrap a latex glove around it. You're going to have a lot less, or you put a latex glove on, you're going to have a lot less feel in that bar. So the raw steel is going to give you the best feel. Stainless steel does that as well, gives you that great feel, and is highly rust resistant. But you're going to pay for that on the end because stainless steel is just more expensive. One step up from stainless steel, I would say, is black zinc or black oxide, kind of right there. Black oxide is a pre-rusted bar. What they basically do is they cause the bar to oxidize to a black color, which then prevents further oxidation. But once that finish comes off, there's going to be more oxidation, more rust. And as you know, if you've ever gotten rust on metal, if you scratch it off, it comes off relatively easily. That black oxide, ferric oxide is rust. Black oxide is black rust on the bar. So it has a very low durability. Once it's scratched off, it's now again raw steel, and you're back to that initial layer. So black zinc is a little more durable, but not a whole lot. It does have has a worse feel. It might have a better rust resistance because it is more of a coating instead of just a pre-oxidized shaft. So the zinc, I would say, does have a better rust resistance, but the zinc is a thicker, it's an electrolytic process, so it's magnetized typically to the bar and almost baked on. So think people like Cerakote, but it's a similar process to that, but almost a rhino line or something like that, but it's magnetized to the bar and baked on. So the black zinc is going to fill the knurling and be very slick, and then zinc is just a slick material in general. So it's filling the knurl patterns, and then you're holding on to a very smooth finish. And then once it rubs off, again, you're back to that raw steel, which is going to rust unless you grease it regularly. So a step up from that, or in my opinion, the best finish you can get on a bar is nickel plating, electroless nickel plating. So electroless nickel plating is a very thin coating that's molecularly bonded to the steel itself. So it's not a paint, it's not baked on, it's bathed in a solution where the nickel is reactive to the steel. So it's a very thin finish and it's very rust resistant. You can look at videos of bolts in industry where they salt spray a nickel plated bolt for 24, 36, 48 hours and the bolt is still not rusted. They'll have time-lapse videos of a nickel plated bolt next to a stainless steel bolt next to a raw steel bolt, and you can see how fast the raw steel bolt will oxidize, and then the fact that stainless steel will still oxidize, but that nickel plating will not. Nickel plating just won't rust, but it is a plating, and yes, nickel plating is more rust resistant than stainless steel, but nickel plating is a plating. So when the nickel plating wears off, if it wears off, which it will over time as you're bashing it into racks and sliding on plates, you now have raw steel. But that nickel plating is a lot harder than the other finishes and has a lot better rust resistant than any other finish. That's why everyone on the industry, for the most part, again going back to Rogue and Kabuki, the largest names in the fitness industry for their barbells right now, they both have an upcharge of $50 to $100 to go from raw steel or zinc to that nickel plating. So you can see just in the price increase that it's a better quality finish. It's a higher tiered finish. And then stainless steel, it will rust. There is no steel that won't rust. Stainless steel will rust. It's going to happen. But when stainless steel rusts, if you scratch that rust off, there is more stainless steel underneath. So you can see how that is better than nickel in the long term, but typically runs about twice the price for the steel itself. But then if you take a raw steel bar, apply a nickel plating, you're then increasing the price. So you can see how the price hikes happen. So when you're on the market, when you're looking for a bar, make sure that you know what you're getting. Don't just find one online that says, oh, it's a barbell, and jump on it. Because what you're going to run across is there's a lot of people, especially right now, who are selling junk beater bars that are rusted with no knurl and that are hex bolt closure and rusted on the inside and barely spin for $250. When you can get a brand new bar for $350, or you can get a higher end $500, $400 bar, a stainless steel bar for $5 or $6. And I know they're not in stock right now, and supply and demand makes it tough, but if you're not really hurting, at least do your research. And even if you are really hurting and you need that piece of equipment, do as much research as you can, even if it's at minimum amount, just to try and get by. Because if you get a bar now, especially because people are buying now, if you jump on it now because you want it and you need it, you gotta have it, later on down the road you're just gonna have to replace it anyway. And I get it, you need to get by in this period, but this is that learning experience. You have these options, you can see what's out there, and if you spend that $250 on a really cheap quality or low quality cheap bar for powerlifting, for weightlifting, for general gym maintenance, you're gonna have to replace it in the long run. Especially if you're getting an already rusted hex bolt bar or anything like that. PSI rating is very low, so if you're lifting anything substantial, they're gonna bend. And a bent bar is just as dangerous as one with the hex bolts off the end, because it can cause severe injuries. You can tear a rotator cuff, break a wrist, benching or squatting on a bent barbell. I've made other posts about the safety of bent bars, or the lack thereof, in the past, so if you're interested at all, I can share that link to you, and I'll probably go more in depth on that in another video. But I just wanted to touch base. I know everyone's buying barbells and jumping on it. I want to touch base on a few quick things with the bar. So if you're on the market and you're looking, the big things, don't get one with a hex bolt. Make sure it's that dual snap ring closure, not a snap ring hiding a bolt. They're more dangerous than an external hex bolt, and I would rather you get the external hex bolt than the internal bolt hidden by that faceplate and snap ring. The higher PSI is going to be better. Anything over 190 is great, but you don't want to go over typically 220, 230. It starts to get brittle. There is a guy in the market, Kabuki, Chris Duffin, says his bars are not brittle, which is a metallurgical science magical procedure that I've never seen. Once it gets over a certain point, once something is a certain hardness, it tends to be brittle. Chris Duffin says his don't get brittle, and I'd love for him to explain that in the comments here, or if you have a question about it, he's really responsive, so he can get back to you on that. But his bars have the highest PSI rating on the market, and there's argument and speculation as to the integrity of the steel due to how stiff they are, because you're on a stiffness flexibility, or a malleable stiffness range, and the harder it is, the more brittle it is, and you don't want to be at that extreme end. And a lot of people will argue that the Kabuki bar is. So the steel, the finish, the hex bolt or dual snap ring, or the closure at the end of the sleeve, And then the other thing is you want to make sure your bar is made to do what you want to do with it. If you want to do Olympic lifting and powerlifting, you want to get a bar in the mid-range, around 190 to 200 PSI. It's going to give you a little more flex. And you want to make sure the diameter of the bar is going to be efficient and benefit you in what you want to do. If you want to power lift, that 29 millimeter power bar is going to cover you on all spectrums, on all 3 lifts. If you want to do Olympic lifting, if you can get a 28 millimeter bar, then that's going to benefit you more. It's going to be thinner, easier to hold on to. And typically those come with needle bearings instead of bushings. Barbells have a lot of parts. So on an Olympic bar, standard, you will have a 28 millimeter diameter and lines in the knurl at 910 millimeters apart. That's just the standard, so when you set up to it, you know where your hands are going for your snatch or your clean. And if your hands are outside of that, all the way to the collars, or at the edge of the knurl, but that line is regulated at 910 millimeters, 91 centimeters. Dual purpose bars like the original Strength Shop Bastard bar or the Rogue Ohio bar, not the Ohio Power bar, but the Ohio bar, Ohio 2.0, or I think the B&R bar. They have the dual markings. One's at 810 or 81 centimeters, and then 91 centimeters. That 810 is the power mark. They're the inside ones. The outside at 910 is Olympic lifting. So an ideal bar for both, it's not going to be ideal, but the best bar for both is going to be a 28.5 millimeter bar with about a 190 to 200 PSI steel with dual markings, and bushings versus bearings on a bar like that, probably going to be best off getting bushings. Now what bearings are, if you have a true Olympic weightlifting bar with 28 millimeter shaft, only Olympic markings, and then inside the thing that allows the sleeves to spin, instead of having bushings, you will have bearings. So what bearings are is you have, instead of a solid piece of steel around the sleeve, shaft of the bar inside the sleeve, which allows it to spin freely, you have a steel case with little steel needles all around it, and they roll inside this little piece. So they roll freely. You know, like ball bearings you would see in bicycles back in the day if you ever tore a bike apart. But the needle bearings, they move a lot quicker, they move a lot more freely, but they don't deal with the heavy drops. That's why they're made for use with bumper plates. If you're getting a bar that you want to use for powerlifting and weightlifting, the bushings are going to be better, that solid steel piece. Ideally, you want bronze bushings. If the company you're getting the barbell from does not specify that the barbells are bronze, best guess is that they are not. They're probably brass. Because the market standard, again, that 190 up PSI, the market standard is bronze bushings. And not just because someone said, I want to do bronze. Bronze is more durable, it's stronger, and it's just a better alloy. I don't remember the molecular breakdown of the two. One has a different element in it. But bronze is harder and more durable, so it'll spin more freely and will wear down a lot slower. If you have a barbell, and you can see inside the flange, you have the loadable sleeve length, and then that fat piece is the flange. If you see that bushing in there, if you've got a lot of wiggle room after years of use, most likely that was a brass bushing, because the bronze will take 10, 20, depending on the amount of uses it's getting. It'll take a long time to wear down. But the brass is going to wear down a lot quicker. So for weightlifting, 28 millimeters, 910 millimeter knurl marks, needle bearings for free spin. Powerlifting, you want a 29 millimeter shaft for the squat, bench, and deadlift. You want 810 millimeters, and you want bronze bushings. And if you're going to get a bar to use for both, you still want the bronze bushings, you want dual marked, and if you can get a 28.5 millimeter shaft, that's going to be the best all-around bar. I think a lot of them out there that are the dual marked or 28, but I think if you're going to go between a 28 and a 29, why go to 28? Just get that 28.5. It's going to be a lot better for all-around use. Metal, finish, closure, knurling, knurl mark. I think that's about it. They're the big things you need to look at when you're buying a bar. So I'll list in the description, in the caption below, that list and the ranges you want to look at, what you want to make sure you want to do for each barbell. And again, I guess I didn't hit it, so I'll reiterate it now. For a power bar, you want a PSI probably up to 220, 230, and then the Kabuki bar outside of that. But anything over 190 is going to be good for you for powerlifting. The lower it gets, the more whippy it is, and it's just not great for the squat and the bench if the bar's shaking around in your hands. So I really appreciate if you stuck around with me for this whole video. I know it was long and might have been convoluted, and I probably backtracked and it might have been confusing, but if it was, ask me questions in the comments below, DM me any questions you have, or ask me to elaborate on anything that I didn't cover really well or that you didn't quite understand. So I've been working with barbells a lot in the for 2 years. All I did was design barbells. I researched steel and knurling and finish and all that, and that was my life. I was reading, it's crazy, I didn't like it, I just had to. I like it, it was cool, whatever, but that's what I do. And I enjoy it because I'm passionate about it, and I want to make sure what I get is the best, and that anything that I make comes out to be the best, or at least that it can be. So the higher quality of, I want to hit that PSI. I want to make sure it has bronze over brass. For not just, don't take my word for it. Look it up. Look into what everyone else is doing, why they're doing it, and then who's using what. When I chose bronze bushings over brass for my barbells, I didn't do it because some other company did it. I looked at industry for oil drilling rigs, and the bushings they're using in their rigs that are under thousands of pounds of pressure and high heat and millions of revolutions a day, they're using bronze. So they've got to be doing it for a reason. It's more durable and it just performs a lot better. So there are superior options to even just the basic bronze and brass. I can get down to them. I can get into them more in the future, but I'm just going to cut it there. There is so much going on with barbells, not just a stick with knurl on it. So if you have the time and you have the option to look around and see what's available, and just do that and make sure what you're getting is going to last you as long as possible and you're getting the best bang for your buck. And if you're one of those guys that have gone out during this quarantine, guys or girls, I apologize. If you're one of those lifters, those strength athletes, those fitness enthusiasts who have gone out and purchased a barbell during this quarantine to stay active, and you spent some exorbitant amount and gotten a really poor quality product, I'm really sorry for you. I hope it works really well for you now and that you don't get hurt in the long run. And I hope you all stay active, stay fit, stay strong, stay safe, stay home. And I'll be back at you next week, maybe with another review, maybe a little more in-depth with barbells. You guys let me know what you want to hear, and I'll get back at you then. Thanks, guys. Have a